There we go. Perfect. Great.
Perfect.
They're airplanes.
Okay. Did you guys get it? Did you guys get it? So, time starts. Now the advantage able to form of decision-making and versions being structured by ableism, public charge of the basis and full exclusion by 2005. Congress with identifying the defendant members of the press information decided to keep up English state defendant of the trend towards increasing generalization to unneeded degenerate and eugenic laws. Public charge was intended to encompass individuals with disabilities. Public charge is not employment as a generally bodies eugenic considerations also play an important role in immigration law. Minded descendant leads to misery and loss of future generations. Immigrant is unlikely to become a desirable citizen, but very likely to transmit undesirable qualities to his offspring. And Trump's suspension of public charter ground raised inadmissibility for those relied on public charter denied visas and extension of the ableist history of immigration was also in 2017. Trump's next executive order attacking the disabled people trying to legally immigrate will be denied if they are physically or mentally disabled. Is a very short walk to consider undisabled people to be a drain on society. The U.S. used to sterilize the impaired eugenics, particularly to destitute the children, basically the license to enact a great process of impulses. Trump's executive order opens the door to targeting the disabled, and the assumption of disability entails dependency magnifies the eugenics, the furthers the trope of undesirable immigrant, one who drains on welfare is dependent on society by 2016. Deputy 1,000 of the disabled immigrants turned back as defendant and undesirable. They were excluded. They will likely become the bearers of the defective hereditary official justification of the deputy role of social dependence rather than contributed. Deputy will regard as potential dependents responsible for their financial support assumed to rest over their families regardless of employment. The presumption of dependence was never put into peer contesting. And the able to judge through immigration exclusion managed purification of the social body constructs disabled immigrants as essential threats. Hungary 2017. Able to Germany defines disability as a state of social existential invalidity. The default of disability consigns different to margins and condemns non-disabilities to more degeneracy. There is no place for impairment. The U.S. said purification, deportation responses to degeneracy. Disabilities appeals to the racialized notion of the lazy foreigner constituted as non-citizen, no bodies by ableist authorities. This decision will view the arrival of different immigrants as shown as a threat to social body and social identity. It is not incentive grounds of discrimination against immigrants and disabled people prosper. And eugenics justify the name of standards of population, desire populations, push racial hygiene, and targeted reproduction while resisting individuals with disabilities to watch in 2006. Cost-benefit analysis are undertaken to characterize certain minority groups as burdens of the welfare system. This pattern of argumentation has dominated disabled people's discussion of human genetics. The racial hygiene was transferred directly to the population of policy targets. Eugenics has shifted authoritarian rules and developed democratic individualistic approach. The state and society no longer believes to urge their people to do their eugenic duty where witnessing and eugenic at risk of the plan. The United States federal government should eliminate public charge restrictions on legal immigration to the United States. And the plan is essential to anti-ableist policies to radically dismantle barriers to individuals with disabilities. Weber 16. The public charge executive mandate restriction remains significant discriminatory barrier to entry for individuals with disability. Reaction on public charge related restriction would go far to accommodate people with disabilities. State parties must ensure the persons with disabilities are not deprived of the ability to utilize documentation of their nationality or documentation of identification or utilize relevant processes such as immigration procedures that may be needed to facilitate the exercise of the parties' liberty of movement. The reaction to disability immigration restriction in the United States illustrates a significant improvement of removal of disability-related barriers and eliminating the public charge restriction of LPR solves Laws 195. Eligible individuals may adjudicate public charge policy. A caution against the imposition of additional restriction in alien access to public benefit current restriction are against the policy is proposed to limit alien aspects to qualified local permanent residents are punitive and inhumane. Policymakers will have the answer for their failure. And specifically, the public charge gives inspectors discretion to exclude immigrants here. Rolled out 2017. Inspectors discretion of immigration control. Public charge allows officers to use find flexible ways to prevent the landing of foreigners. Passengers could otherwise pass the especially manipulated ways to apply for public charge cost them. And even if the plan isn't a silver bullet, it's necessary to check back against the harms of Trump's chilling effect. In order to combat Trump's violent small legal fixes, must check back against the policies of VINA 2018. A public charge will deny the entry of the federal trade regulations, but now laws, regulations are the rules agencies follows and implement law changing regulations can make a significant difference, but it has limits and can be undone by the next president. Administration, federal administration plans to propose the issues consider expanding laws the list of public benefits that trigger public charge determination. At this point, no one should be withdrawn from programs that benefits that currently are used to determine public charge. We have seen forces of the slowdown of the Muslim backlog, the federal government actions against centralized reopen of the DACA renewal process, and the public charge law itself perpetuates psychic violence against immigrants only overturning and solves Agro in County 2015. Legal violence and promoting the view of immigrants enables dehumanizing action to be perpetuated. Legal language is used to label immigrants as criminals. The immigration regime facilitates symbolic violence, concealed in social structures such as employment, labor market, discriminatory education system, and producing inequality. Psychological process encourages people to accept their responsibility for the social hierarchy. Immigrants internalize the lesson excluded, promoted via these mechanisms. Legal violence underscores the central law providing legitimacy to structural violence against immigrants. Law generates violence and makes socially acceptable social societies normalize practices that harm immigrants precisely because they broke the law. Next framing. Trump passed pro-immigration reform PTA January. The Trump administration announced a rule on H-1B visas. Trump can mark folders in the country to accelerate that passive citizenship. Employers will have a greater chance of selection than the age of access demand, and this is an increase of up to 60% of cap petitions. And the new Dem Congress means one immigration bills are inevitable in 2018. There will be progress on immigration after the new Congress is exploring probable experts. They are working on similar goals. They will pass the DREAM Act on which there is agreement, a pathway for citizens for undocumented immigrants, and adding new visas for foreign workers. And utilitarianism is funded on the sacrifice and sterilization of disabled immigrants, modeling eugenic social policy. Turn 13. Eugenics was fundamentally based on utilitarianism. Ethos will require sacrifice of the individual liberty in order to achieve a greater good. Eugenics will gradually transform into social policies, restriction immigration, anti-miscongenic laws such as segregation, compulsory sterilization for people with mental or physical disability, eugenics and systematic genocide. Eugenics programs relying on strong belief and firm commitment on the ideals of utilitarianism that sacrifice individual liberties for a greater collective good for future generations. And ongoing violence outweighs the trade-off with the extinction of framing Jackson 12. Big threats to destruction from structural violence. The facts are irrefutable. The state spends on security measures that have no impact on risk and engage social theory. The display hoping you won't notice economic inequality, ill health, suicide, unemployment, domestic violence, and social violence. Domestic programs struggles to provide even middle support. Welfare have been inadequate for decades. The security structures as they are. It is easier to paint immigrants as a threat. Security is one confidence trick to destruction and inequality, which shows the real threat. If you think that immigrants are a greater threat, you're more likely to die from structural violence. Then prioritize probability. Tester 8. Risk defined by potential loss leads to marginalization of probability. Even the high improbability could be relevant to possible to infinity. Risk management and rational breakdown under certain rational imbalance. Balancing is possible to represent a loss of a catastrophe happen irrespectively. Activity and political action to prevent that the most serious threat could be created at discontinuous scenarios, which there are possible trial. Even the most absurd scenarios gain a shade of potentiality is likely to dwindle the impression of possibility. And each internally exponentially reduces the likelihood of the next Sonata 98. Scenarios get more credibility than the trial possible of a false supposition. Even the most far-fetched compromise, the number of links may seem probable given the one before it, although likelihood dwindles with each step. Impression of the possibility omitted branches that will lead to neutral outcome cut the card at outcome. Then threat of existential risk leads to irrational decision-making. Covert 115. Probability next time refers to people's tendency to record likelihood of events that be readily associated with images with elicit strong emotions. Actions skew people's ability to access likelihood of risk, lets people to make specific judgment in error, basically characterized as one of the irrational systematic respondents out of the value of a high-risk judgment was seen by few people from probability determination that they would not otherwise make, even with a risk high-risk outrage occurrence on such a nuclear waste radiation. Then advisors check Trump, verse 17. Steps to alert his national security and efforts to bypass leadership will alarm some organize the military strength to reject illegal orders. Then Trump, the president may need many others to help him fire off nuclear weapons. Military do not have to follow his orders. Blinding alarms give us confidence. Legal question will be asked. The president will find it hard to persuade the military rapidly. And targeted demands of the state are critical. King 16. It's unrealistic to talk about wholly autonomous structures because they'll be noted by the state. We are forced to respond to the state CIA of the Black Panthers and Peanuts and Mexicans has taken engagement in politics rights. Resistance to visible collection action will center to struggle against the border patrol makes demand on the state's decision has seen as reinforcing the state representation be thought as a border technology. When it comes to actual practices against the border, such strategy, naive migrant-led structures have been claims for rights. Don't dismiss such targets, and sometimes recognition is the only available strategy. Cut the card at strategy.
Which branch of the government does he have?
Congress.
Congress? Okay. So on your trope of dependency arguments, what exactly causes the trope of dependency? Is it like the existence of public charge or the fact that they don't have access to like welfare services?
So the reason why the trope of dependency exists in the first place is because of ableism, right? Like we assume these people to be dependent on welfare, so that's why like.
So it's a greater structural problem of ableism.
Sure.
Okay, so in this specific instance that the trope of dependency is justified with public charge, the way that it's justified is by saying that they should not have access to state benefits, right?
No, it's to repeal the public charge.
No, I'm not asking what the plan is. I'm asking what is the plan's reason for why the trope of dependency is bad. It's because it prevents immigrants from accessing like social services, right?
Because it models like eugenic policies and like the mindset of this.
So it's purely about the mindset. It's not about like the material issue of they cannot get the services in the first place.
We'll say like it's both, right?
It's both.
Yeah.
Okay. So on this symbolic violence arguments that you talk about, the card lists a bunch of other things such as exploitative labor markets and discriminatory educational systems that produce more inequality that disabled people might internalize. How does the app offset all of these other things?
So we don't have to solve every single instance of psychic violence. All we have to solve is like the
Yeah.
psychic violence that
So
public charge.
yeah, so obviously you don't need to solve for every instance, but obviously after the app happens, there are these other larger structures that will still reinforce symbolic and psychological violence. So where's the card that says that your affirmative will make a big enough difference for this to matter?
Wait, reinforce the psychic violence?
Yeah, because your card lists like 3 different other more structural things that causes more symbolic violence against immigrants because there are other laws that they could look to be like to internalize ableism. So how do you know that your app is enough to make a difference within that system?
Well, I don't understand why that you're claiming our app leads to more ableism.
I'm not saying that you lead to more ableism. I'm asking how can you overwhelm the perception that other laws will cause in order to cause symbolic violence?
So we say that public charge is the biggest law that causes
Okay,
symbolic
which card
violence.
says public charge is the biggest law?
So the first card talks about how the Byington 05 evidence talks
Wait,
about
read me
how
the line that says that
public
public charge is the biggest law within these policies that reinforces ableism. Because this card basically just says that public charge is ableist. It doesn't say that it's the biggest one.
Okay, so I don't know if other laws are also ableist. Is there any other?
I'll move on. So on the framing argument, you say that in a new Dems Congress, small immigration bills will inevitably pass. So which of those small immigration bills are in Congress now?
DREAM Act and a pathway for
The
citizenship. for
DREAM Act, where in the
undocumented.
card?
Oh, it says they will pass the DREAM Act where there is agreement.
Wait,
and
this was
also-
written in 2018. How does this like make predictions about what's in Congress now?
Well,
No, I don't think that's what our evidence is saying. We're saying like because like the Democrats now have.
Yeah, so I'm asking you, what are those small bills that are in
No,
Congress?
we're saying like there will be more.
But, yeah, but what is this one?
Yeah. Six. Do you need hers?
Or do you just want it?
Six off and then.
And then case in the order of framing then. Everyone, yeah. First off, interpretation, legal immigration is LPR status hanging out for. Legal immigration is defined as person lawfully admitted for permanent residence in the U.S. The Immigration Act of 1990, which is enforced, established limits for family-sponsored preferences, employment-based preferences, and diversity immigrants. Other immigration is defined as a flow of persons who do not meet the definition of illegal immigration. The act is extra topical. It would give non-immigrant visas to those denied by public charge variety to 18 under the INA 4 national can be found admissible for both the non-immigrant and immigrant visa are likely to become a public charge. This is a voting issue to protect limits and ground. First is legal precision only. We have and provides the most predictable and real-world basis for debate. Second is limits allowing non-immigrant visa and citizenship adds hundreds of new visa categories. Now our next off is text. The United States federal government should not enforce the public charge immigration restriction. Next off is text. The Supreme Court of the United States should rule that public charge is unconstitutional because it's discriminatory and overly ambiguous. Those and avoid politics court have the authority to rule on immigration and provide citizenship. Ludwig 99 for the court to provide naturalization, it would find a foundation in direct control of citizenship can be striking down off any clauses on nationalization statutes. Once unconstitutional clauses are excised, that would automatically confer citizenship, and the plan's ruling violates the PQD. Reducing restriction means legislating from the bench. Fear 9. Elected officials are more accountable for public and can be best represent the public's interest. Immigration law is political. Any judicial invalidation of immigration statutes requires some legislating from the branch, and breaking the PQD is key. It creates a regulatory dialogue that encourages comprehensive regulatory regime to check emissions on soft state 12. The court has entered dialogue through lawsuits and forced regulation. In the U.S. has struggled to develop a federal policy. The most important issues are the political question doctrine. The Supreme Court's treatment of the PQD provides no guidance. The decision in the lower courts includes discussion of whether a claim would require policy determination. However, the world's political question do not appear put pressure on the Congress to leave the Clean Air Act in place. These cases put pressure on the government and corporation, and raising public awareness courts will remain an important regulatory background. And absent counterplan, warming causes extinction, Taurus 16. Climate raises the probability of other risks, the collapse of global ecosystem, agricultural failures, economic uncertainty, deeper causes of this rising instability. Climate change as a threat multiplier with the potential to exacerbate infectious disease, poverty, and social tension. Ineffectual leadership and weak institutions could push societies to the brink of collapse. Conflict multipliers will define the context in which civilization confronts all the other threats that ought to take precedence over all other risk concerns. Our next off is infrastructure. It passes now. It's bipartisan in neighbors. January 25th, momentum appears to be growing. Pelosi says optimistic that infrastructure will be passed this year. She and the president may find agreement. The administration met to discuss the plan as soon as the shutdown ended, and this includes a gas tax. Kennedy, January 31st. Trump has signaled for support for the federal gas tax to pay for infrastructure. A gas tax will happen this year, and if restrictions destroy the bipartisan agenda. Stockholz and Habercorn 18. Pelosi expressed hope for bipartisan cooperation. Bill House oversight role foreshadowing a political fight. Trump and Pelosi promised to Congress as a check on the executive branch. Trump threatened to retaliate by unleashing the GOP-controlled Senate and against Democrats trying to tamp down some of the party's most aggressive proposals. And bill solves oil dependence, volatility, petrol state influence, and warming. Crowhammer 15. The gas tax increases disincentive to consume gasoline. If constrained consumption would apply downward pressure on oil prices, money would go into the U.S. instead of overseas. Lower consumption reduces pollution and CO2 emissions. And volatility unchecked goes nuclear. Carl 16. Volatile scenarios lie ahead. One impact is future price spike only. A thin margin separates surplus from shortage. Global production drop. Oil violence underlies all of hotspot governments, including Russia, have every incentive to take aggressive nationalist action to deflect attention. Volatility destabilizes economies and encourages war. Our next off is immigration policy acts as a roost of neutrality for oppressive legal system by recreating a racialized subclass of those who are undocumented and privileged to access foreign violence, where migrants face militarization on the borders within their lives, as well as the increasing carceral work environment that allows corporations to exploit their workers with the risk of prison labor conscription. Hallett 17. Immigration law has intensified militarization on the border, increasing number of deportations, and suppression of migrants is inevitable even when the state recognizes their rights. The threat of deportation will always prevent immigrants from exercising these formal rights. The characterization of migrants as choosing becoming illegal is supported by a racialized definition of belonging and white nationalist ideology, which structures notions of exclusion and frame all immigrants as people out of their place. They suffer the denial of worker benefits, the suppression of wages, and furthers the neoliberal state's interest by allowing the president of a subclass of undocumented workers. If migrants are detained, they are conscripted into labor within privatized and for-profit immigration detention systems. And unchecked neoliberalism is unsustainable. Absent change ensures extinction. Robinson 16. Elites have turned war, structural violence, and inequality into opportunity for capital. Unchecked capitalism has become sadistic. Alongside the spread of new systems of social control and repression is heightened dissemination through industries and corporate marketing that depoliticize through consumers' fantasy and manipulation of desire. It is difficult to imagine the environment resolved within capitalist system. Green capitalism and capitalism turn to the ecological crisis and profit-making opportunity, along with the conversion of poverty into a tourist attraction. If capitalist system stops expanding and enters a crisis and faces collapse, making wars of endless destruction and expanding the militarization of social and political institutions. And the alternative is a protracted materialist struggle. This provides an effective starting point for global revolution. Our use of the academic sphere as an organizing space for anti-capitalist knowledge is able to produce global change, reject any permutation as a forfeit tool, not leading favor diluted knowledge is capable of achieving revolution. Cat 3. The teacher is to engage with students as material force, and the teacher is taking up a position of political leadership and the class struggle taking place in the classroom, critiquing reformist discourse and circulating revolutionary ones. A revolution can take place only conjunct with revolutionary uprising at other sites in the university. We can do no more than engage in struggle. Our focus should be on the possibility of leadership in the site of the university. We should examine the question of pedagogy and the relation to condition of possibility for a waging of class struggle on global scale. Our next off is Trump's strategy for securing the base of securing the border. His anti-immigrant stance continues to generate overwhelming support among his Republican voters. Malone 18. Analysis see Trump's quick pivot from backing down on family separation to focusing again on border security, aimed at firing up his political base. They are only concerned about the base, and the base is strongly anti-immigration. Recent polls show Trump remains overwhelmingly popular among Republican voters, and the plan causes total revolt and immediate base defection. Silverstein 17. Trump stopper stands on his border walls, cracking his base diehard conservatives, and the mainstream media erupted. Mass panic after reports that Trump is willing to work with Democrats. If Trump yields, Trump's bases will be blown up, destroyed, irreparable, and disillusioned beyond repair. If we're not getting a wall, I'd prefer Pence. And Coulter tweeted Instagram called Trump's apparent new support of betrayal. Mark the card there. And a loss of base support will make Trump lash out. Those wars will go nuclear. January 18. His base are his permanent suppliers of its tiltation and self-affirmation he craves. Trump uses his chaos to shock his opponents into outrage and then lunges forward amid the tumult. Whenever he's the opportunity, we might see a likelihood of a crisis on the vital sprinkler of the Trump presidency. Lower his poll numbers, the likelier he will use a crisis confrontation might be in Iran or dust off with China and the SCS. We might expect strong steps against refugees and immigrants, widespread deportation, tightening, and suspending immigration. His political drama will be elevated to a heroic struggle for the survival of the nation. On to framing. Ethical policy making requires calculation of consequences. Gavastev 5. The morality of a policy is judged by its results, not its intentions. It's moral to seek solutions that minimize harm and produce sustainable results. The better led the deaths of thousands. Holding out the most moral outcome could have avoided bloodshed and extinction should come from first. It wipes out all future generations. Mostrom 13. Existential catastrophe would destroy the future. Even if we use the most conservative estimate, the expected loss of an existential catastrophe is greater than value of 10 to the power of 60 human lives. If the expected value of reducing existential threats by a mere 1/1,000,000th of 1 percentage point is at least 100 times the value of 1,000,000 human lives. Mark the card there. And conjugative fallacy is wrong. It doesn't disprove this as internal links. It just means there are multiple areas to attack this at probability. They must actually disprove this at scenario first. Then cognitive bias flows next. Bostrom will have cognitive bias impedes efforts at dealing with existential threats. The ability of heuristic creates a good story bias. People evaluate on good experience. No having experience with existential catastrophe. Extinction expectation may be for Mark the card there. And they can't name any small immigration bill in Congress, so their number is essentially invalid. And onto the advantage proper. First, Trump's Neptune means the plan and implementation feels durable. Fiat doesn't check ICE immigration course and the assist. Trump's 1017 assist implementation of deferred action. ICE priority of serious criminal offense and the DOJ's use priority docketing immigration courts. Trump's raising concern over duty to supervise the immigration bureaucracy, fidelity to congressional statutes, and deference to legal precedents. And even if the plan is passed, it doesn't. So Trump rhetoric and attacks on healthcare, the ADA, public benefits, and other social policy mean the plan can't solve any facet of ableism in the U.S. So you should vote neg on presumption. That's Saikowski actually skipped that card.
So you only got to the first card.
Second. Wait. Yeah, first one, second. Yeah.
So what's the status of everything? Conditions? So how does our app link to CAP?
Through like immigration policies, like basking the true like function of the neoliberal state's interests, like
If the Heller evidence says that the U.S. actually exists in a state of exception, so whenever immigration or like any form of legal immigration policies are justified, it also reinforces the neoliberal or like the legal immigration system, which then legitimizes the violence done against those who don't fit under that system by like undocumented immigrants.
Okay.
What's the PQD? What does it do?
It's basically a document that says that courts are not allowed to rule on politically contentious issues, and we're saying that that specific doctrine is what prevents the courts from ruling on things like climate change, and ruling on immigration would decimate the precedent. So
So why is the court ruling on climate change good?
it's good because like it solves for climate change.
because that
Wait,
that
I don't
costs
know.
you evidence or
Like,
something.
is there an evidence that says if the courts rule for climate change, they're going to rule something in favor of climate change or against climate change?
Yeah, the Asofsky 12 evidence talks about how there are multiple different things that are about to enter the court, and the court was going to rule on them. However, the reason why they weren't able to rule in favor is because of things like
So what was the thing that the courts were going to rule on?
To leave the Clean Air Act in place.
and like there's a bunch of other stuff about the EU, as well as like there are other more like smaller court cases that try to deal with individual regulations.
Okay, so how does your alternative, like, what's the ultimate goal of your alternative? Is it to like seize the state and then shift back to local governing?
It's not to shift back to local governing bodies. It's to seize the state, replace it with a socialist system of self-governance until it is able to eventually transition into a communism.
Oh, so your ultimate goal is to transition into communism.
Yes.
Okay. So, how does the Trump lashing out lead to new reform? Like lashing out people for
Trump's retaliation to the fact that like his core support is declining is to try and get them back, and he does this by launching out in like hopes that it will regain his base.
So, where in the card does it say wars go nuclear?
What?
Where in the card does it say wars go nuclear?
Like in the South China Sea, like
listening until you're saying it.
The order is advantage, framing, extra T, K, advantage, framing, extra T, critique, courts, non-enforcement, infrastructure, space.
Their last
Does anyone know?
Give me one. Yeah.
They say as we saw public charge the ultimate ground for deportation because they give inspectors incredible amount of discretion and flexibility to deport people. That's her vote. And this card literally mentions public charge as a reason for deportation and extended VNA 2018 for the plan is so bill is still necessary to check back against Trump's chilling effect in order to combat Trump's violence. Small legal phases must check back against this policy. They say all cause group and all cause even social conditions are perfect. United States quality for life for immigrants is still better than their home countries. That's based on also overturning public charge and a broader saying of anti-ableist sentiment regardless because it's seen as a basic disability deportation for decades and we don't need to solve all of it all of ableism just to win just how we prevent instances of ableism community not to framing. Utils ableist framing reevaluating and operates under a subject that individual disabilities we can contribute to the greater good and implement that's heard extend ableism first all laws matter extending framing raising the fact that disabled people are not considered fully functioning citizens who don't have equal value for granted disabilities and deal and extend probably prefer probably or impacts are happening now where there's only a risk this happen there will always be an extinction scenario which makes him complicit in systemic ableism. You should multiply the only power believes even if the risk of each only 70% the total of his argument only be 30%. You should doubt this scenario like first causing rational policy making by causing us to overestimate that's covered. Extend no war. Trump makes war unlikely, creates the fear and making even if you lash out there's no retaliation. Nation states band together and facing the irrational actions that shake up and answer to no conjunctive fallacy. We're not saying that your scenarios are unquantifiable. We're just saying that with each link level your scenario becomes less probable answer to future generations distracting you from social violence in the present prioritize life dying now and future generations save logic that justify ableist excluding disabled bodies for creating unproductive offspring rejected and answer to cognitive bias flows after they cause irrational decision making because there will always be a minuscule chance of extinction for every action that makes politics obsolete. They say consequences will weigh it based on probability, topicality. Legal immigration policy nonsense obtaining LPR. This includes new arrival adjustment of status Robinson 2010. Legal immigration includes new arrivals U.S. and people in U.S. adjusting status migrant status LPR include people in arrived as refugee parole legal temporary migrants without authorizing and submitting qualified for LPR. This is special provision by meeting normal means adjusting status and that includes adjustment of status Candel 2018 principle under primary immigration family reunification humanitarian assistance and these immigrant permanent use or adjusting status LPR African does that not exclude court cases like dream marriage refugee and Saudi green cards with temporary visa holder every average actual T because all restrictions affect status is just DHS in 2018. 53% adjusted status and 47% enter and these are new rounds marked card, new rounds extra T's and voters they still get negative immigrants outside the country. Legal precision our definition says the DHS and says the Bureau which has authoritarian understanding what